Well, hello everyone. Welcome back to Adrian's Digital Basement 2. It's a super mini mail call and let's get right to it. These packages have been piling up quite a bit because the plexus there behind me has been sucking up all my time. Let's just go right to this package here. There's a big box full of them on the ground right here. Yep, apologies again. I do this all the time. I apologize a lot. It must be the Canadian in me. I have a ton of mail call packages that have been accumulating. And yeah, it's just finding time to get to them, it's been a little bit difficult. So apologies for anyone who sent stuff in. It's all here and over there, and I have a big log file, so I will get to it. Plus there's stuff from like 2 years ago I haven't gotten to yet. This comes from Mark in Berkshire in England. So hi to all my English viewers or UK viewers. Let's see what this is. All right, we have a shoebox. Last time I had a shoebox, there were Acorn stuff in here, parts for Acorn machines like the BBC or the Acorn Electron, which I did a video on that. It's been a little bit of time now, but I think just looking at the size of the box here, I'm pretty sure there was a box. Actually, now I think about it, the last shoebox I got was with the East German computer. It's sitting over here though. I need to get back to that. That machine was freaking fantastic. All right, well, inside here, we have a letter and a bunch of stuff. As you can see at the top here, Mark is a patron, so thanks very much for the support, Mark. So the letter says, "Hi Adrian, here's the BBC B and Master items. Towards the bottom of the box, you will find 2 editions of our local newspaper. I hope you find the couple items useful." Thank you for the nice letter, Mark. Let's see what we have here. Okay, we have some interesting stuff here. The papers say Maidenhead Advertiser, and there are 2 different editions here. Let's switch camera views and let's see how far behind I am with opening this. Have I really had this since 2023 and it's almost this time 2024? Yes, I have. I looked at the package and it had a date from the PO box and it was August of 2023. So kind of shows how far behind I am. And yes, I just reached into this box of mail call packages here and I just grabbed something without looking at the date. So wow, okay, sorry about that, Mark, but it did get here and you were probably been wondering for the longest time where everything was. Well, here it is. Okay, so besides these local papers here, I mean, let's look at the news from that long ago. Pair raise thousands for wildfire victims. Nice. Got an advertisement on the bottom there. Yeah, thank you for supporting trusted independent journalism. End of travel card to hammer rail users. Appeal for fruit and veg to tackle holiday hunger. All right, and this other edition here. Contentious Spencer's Farm plans rejected. Proposal for up to 330 homes refused as councillors raise flood risk concerns. Right, okay, anyhow, that's cool. I'll take a look at those some more later. Now, as for the goodies, okay, so I could tell this must be for the BBC Master 128, and we have a mouse. Did I have an idea that there was a mouse? No, but look at this. Acorn part number. This is so cool. So a little tiny bit of crust on the on the wheels there. But overall, it's in really nice shape. Let's see how I can get this thing back on. There we go. So that's a pretty interesting looking mouse. Very chunky. All right, and this is the connection here. I wonder what this plugs into. I'd have to go look that up. The BBC Master 128 has a ton of connections on the bottom. Lots of expansion on that. So this must be maybe a user port or something like that. And probably this uses quadrature encoding, which is very similar to the Apple Macintosh mouse, the Atari and Amiga, stuff like that. Judging by the number of pins here though, that's possible actually. 1, 2. We're going to need 2 for one for ground, 1 for 5 volts, and then there's going to be the 2 buttons, and then I think there's like X, X, and Y, Y. So yeah, quadrature encoding it looks like. Now I will have to go do some research as to what could use this mouse. I don't recall running any kind of graphical user interfaces, but I'm assuming there's some kind of paint programs and things like that. Did they ever port GEOS to the BBC Master or any kind of graphical user interfaces like that? Searching for the Acorn mouse has a part number on the bottom. I can find an eBay listing for it. And that's it, obviously. The only thing it says for the description is very rare Acorn mouse on tested. Okay. We have a thing from WorthPoint, a couple other things which I clicked on, as you can see already, and there's not really anything. But here's something on the Master. This is the fancier version than what I have. There it is running DOS, but this is the Master 512, which has kind of MS-DOS compatibility. And I'm wondering if this is the PC version. It does say, though, it's using the Acorn 2-button mouse for use with Git, Gem, and other GUI environments. There's the mouse right there. Now, I think that goes back to my question, is there's that PC expansion thing. It has a Motorola Intel 186, and I guess there's some patches to make it sort of DOS compatible, because that is not inherently a PC compatible processor. So that really goes back to my earlier question, are there GUIs available for native running on the BBC Master 128, like paint programs or things like that? There's got to be stuff that uses this mouse. So yeah, put comments down below. Let me know what I should be looking for to try to run on this computer with this mouse. That'd be pretty cool. Okay, moving on, we have these. So this obviously, this looks like the Master logo right there. And this is a cartridge that can plug into, I think the machine has 2 cartridge slots. Gosh, I don't remember. It's been a little while, and the Plexus has sucked up all my brain power. But you could add additional ROMs, and obviously with these cartridges here, this was similar to the BBC Model B, which actually had extra sockets on the inside to add ROMs, but they're on one of mine, I have 2, has an EPROM socket right on the front of the machine next to the keyboard, so you can add ROMs to that. And I guess these were designed for people who were used to adding ROMs to their machines. Now, I remember fooling around on my Model B, and I've never really done a proper video on that machine. These are things I bought when I was in the UK on a business trip, and I used, I sent some stuff to the office using eBay. I had them shipped to one of my coworkers, and then I picked them up and brought them home. And I remember fooling around with one of them, and this was before I had the SD card adapter. Actually, now that I think about it, one of my Model Bs has the floppy drive interface in it, so I could use the SD card adapter, I think. Actually, no, the SD card adapter plugs into the user port anyways. Point being, I remember finding a ROM for the game Arkanoid, and I put that into one of the sockets on the motherboard, and yeah, it was able just to run the game Arkanoid. So obviously, these allow similar functionality on the model, or the BBC Master 128. So it's so funny because I was using the Master 128 during a series of videos I made on the machine, and it's really awesome. And then I was doing the videos on the Acorn Electron, which is a similar architected machine, later cost reduced, stuff like that, but you know, works in a very similar way. And I kind of forgot a lot of the ins and outs of the machines already. So I'm gonna need some tips from my viewers who are Acorn and BBC experts. What kind of things would you put on these types of cartridges for the Master? Obviously, there are probably some games you could get for this, although I have the SD card adapter on there now. So I could use some tips. Oh, there's some stuff written on the back. I didn't even notice this. So this side to keyboard here, right and wrong. Okay, please ensure that both ROMs or EPROMs, I guess we're going to call that, are fitted in there with their notches downward and when inserting the cartridge. All right, and this one here accepts 2 32K EPROMs or 2 128K EPROMs. What's a 27513? I know the 27512. Not super familiar with that variance. Maybe there's a slight difference with chip select or something. I think the only thing that this would benefit from, but there's obviously no room, is ZIF sockets. But it's not going to work, because I'm pretty sure when you stick this into the computer, it's like covered up partially. So there's some clearance issues. But the machine definitely has 2 cartridge slots, and we have 2 cartridges. Okay, so there's more than just a couple items, because we have some more stuff in anti-static bags here. Let's take a look. Right, this is old. Now, this might have been something we discussed in the Patreon message a whole freaking year ago, and and I've already forgotten what they are. Right, and right here it says Cheetah Sweet Talker BBC Micro. So this is like a speech synthesis thing? Okay, quick Google of Cheetah Sweet Talker, and we did get some stuff here. So here's an old archived website. There it is, the speech synthesis module for the BBC Model A and B. I like it. There's the little board right there. And we have a tape with the requisite software. There it is, a copy of the Sweet Talker board. The Cheetah Marketing Sweet Talker is an alternative to the Acorn Speech Upgrade. It plugged into IC99 on the BBC Micro. It uses an SPO256A AL2 chip, which is a speech processor with all 59 phonemes in English language and 5 pauses. Each of the phonemes is individually addressable. The demonstration tape contains example programs. And we have Acorn User Magazine, who wrote a review of this particular product back in the day. 25 pounds, surely the most inexpensive way of adding synthetic speech to your beep. I could type in a string such as HH1 EHLLOW, hello, to produce the word hello. Not ideal, but much better than the string of meaningless numbers. Here's a video from Rory, I think demonstrating this particular product. Let's take a listen. That sounded not too bad. I'm just confirming that it is the Cheetah Sweet Talker, and it is indeed. Right, well, that's pretty awesome. I'm gonna have to obviously do a BBC video where I really show off the BBC Model B that I have. Well, I have two, like I said. I need to combine the two machines. One's a bit weird. I need to combine them into one really perfect machine. The only thing I've ever done to those things is I modified the power supply to run on 120 volts. I think I've made some videos about that if you look in my older back catalog. So yeah, absolutely. It's time for a little sweet talking. I would imagine this mouse is probably compatible with the regular Model B, but also with the Master. And then obviously, once I figure out what kind of ROMs to put in here, that'll be great for the BBC Master to quickly get mods and software on and off that thing, since the ROMs are on the inside there. They're not always super easy to get to. Okay, let's keep going here. We got some more stuff. Again, I feel really bad, Mark, for taking absolutely so long to get to the things that you've sent me. What is this? Obviously some connections here that go to something. This plugs into an IC socket, I'm imagining. And then we have some kind of a connector here that would go to some kind of extra peripheral. I am guessing that this is a floppy drive connector that has been shaved down. You can see the ends have been shaved off, but it has that same little part right there for the Sugart 34-pin connector. So I think that might be a way to reuse those connectors at some point when whoever made this back in the day. What do we have for the IC here? 74LS157, and it's from 1983. So this is an old piece of kit here. Mark included the original correspondence that we had, and it was on Discord messaging. Thank you very much, Mark, for printing this out, because Discord messaging is such garbage. It's impossible to like search for old messages. So luckily it's printed out here. There was an article from Bebug, build your own sideways RAM. It may be of interest. They may be piggybacking. Okay, you know what? I'm not sure this is related to what this is right here. Mark's mentioning some of the stuff that he had on his BBC Master back in the day, like a second 6502, a converted Atari trackball to be compatible with the BBC. Of course, quadrature encoding, so I think that would work similar to the mouse. So I'm not immediately seeing what Mark is telling me. I might be missing it about what this little thing is right here. But yeah, very curious. I'm sure someone watching can recognize or recognizes this and can definitely let me know what that is. There are still more things here though. Let's keep looking. This is awesome. This is amazing. This is all really old stuff. Wait a second, here it is. This is it. This is the RAM expansion. Sideways RAM, I guess. Right. What does this tape do, I wonder? I guess this is just a way to prevent these ICs, because there are ICs under here, from shorting out to something metal inside the case. Solidisk Technology Limited, Computer Peripherals, Microprocessor Dedicated Systems. There's their address and whatnot. Got some RAM on here. So these are, what is this? We have TMS 4416, so two of these is 16K. I guess you can have up to 32K based on the space for two additional chips there. A couple more ICs, and like I mentioned, there are chips under there, but there must be just additional logic chips. And the fact that this says 32K here just probably means that you would just need to install a couple extra chips here for more RAM on your systems. This is that edge connector that plugs into that little board that goes on the motherboard. You can see the notch there. This is an issue 2 board, STL. Back of the board, looks like it's handmade, definitely handmade. That resistor is on there properly. Yep. And this would just go together like so. If we push this on carefully. Yeah. So we have a RAM expansion, I would guess, for the BBC Model B, and would expand the system with an additional 32K of RAM, and sideways RAM, I think, was the terminology that Acorn came up with for bank switching, which I might be totally off base with this, but I'm pretty sure the BBC Master 128 uses the equivalent of this kind of sideways RAM for itself to do the bank switching for those 128K. It's a 6502 processor, right? We have a 64K memory map, and you have, of course, lots of I/O ports. We have ROMs, and then you have RAM. So you're going to have to switch the RAM out. I think it's a 32K. I don't know what the page size is, but I think 32K is the like native size of the RAM in the memory map, and parts of that get swapped out to allow up to 128K. And obviously with a board like this, you also get some additional swapping. And there must be a manual somewhere that tells you where to connect these cables to, probably various signals around the motherboard, to facilitate that swapping. So let's go see if I can find a manual for this thing. And a very quick Google search took us right to the original manual. Let's see here. So how does the sideways RAM work? I'm not familiar, so I'm going to read on here. BBC computer is built around the 6502. 64K address space divided into three main areas. Bottom up, we got RAM 32K, then the sideways ROM 16K, and the MOS, which is machine operating system, which is the remaining 16K. Sideways ROMs, if you open the computer case and remove the keyboard, you'll notice the ROM area, which has 5 sockets. 3 of them are factory fitted. The leftmost one is the machine operating system. Next to it is the basic ROM, and then the DFS, or disk file system ROM. They're all essential for the computer. You can think of the MOS as a landlord controlling all the different sockets and things. Every time you power on the computer or press brake, the landlord checks on its tenants. He looks and tries to identify a copyrighted ROM. If the ROM is copyrighted, denoted by the word C programmed into the ROM, it is there, the socket occupied, otherwise it's empty. Socket shops are organized in a row. MOS handles the task of choosing a particular ROM, a particular shop. I mean, I love this analogies here, to be placed in the 6502 memory map in the manner of a slide projector. The 6502 sees that socket. The hardware and software perform all the sideways ROM slideshow. That's quite complex, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, okay. So it's bank switching, as I mentioned here. So 4 sockets are provided on the standard computer. MOS is capable of controlling 16 sockets, which I think the BBC Master does support additional ROMs, so they're larger. So I think one chip can have multiple ROM images in it. Sideways RAM on the memory map consists of additional RAM sharing the same sideways area in the BBC with the ROMs. All right, that explains that. Yeah, now I remember reading that in some of the manuals. So the additional RAM on the BBC Master is achieved by using that bank switching that already exists on the machine for switching out ROMs, and that allows you to have additional RAM. So obviously when you plug an EPROM into the computer, it's not writable, but there's nothing to say that what you bank switch into that space where those ROMs are couldn't be writable. And I think that's what obviously this does, is maybe this plugs into the ROM socket on the BBC, and then additional write signals, which are not normally on there, are what these connectors go to, and that allows the system to actually write to this RAM that's in here. So a program will need to know that there's some RAM available in the sideways ROM area, so you switch to that socket or whatever, that slot, and then you can actually address that additional RAM. Obviously, unlike ROMs, the RAM has to be loaded from disk or whatever, right? Because it's RAM. The first use of sideways RAM is to run sideways software. Broadly speaking, there are 2 categories of sideways programs: sideways ROMs and specially written programs. Specially written programs are available only on diskettes ready to use with your sideways RAM system. At present, most specially written programs are supplied by Solidisk Software Support Services. They were originally developed by their engineers, blah, blah, blah. Right. Free software from Solidisk. Okay. Specially written programs, ROM overlays, modular or procedural programs such as SolidWorks Data File and the Macro Basic. Fast disk access programs such as Silexicon and Word64. These programs depend heavily on the speed of accessing a great number of small portions of the data. Although you can use them with twin drives, they are 100 times faster than when using with solid disk. So this is a disk caching utility, I guess. Right, and here's a little bit on the installation. So, yep, you plug in the base unit into the rightmost ROM socket on the board. Check all pins of the base unit, straighten them if necessary. Yes, indeed. Pressing down on the base unit, the computer board may flex. Power on. The base unit should not have any effects. Right, of course. And then here it goes on to talk about how to connect the control wires. And yes, so see 6522, this will be for controlling the banking. So obviously this is a VIA, right? Or a CIA, I can't remember what it's called, but you can turn the outputs in and on and off and whatnot. So you can turn these IO pins off and on, and that obviously is enabling, disabling, stuff like that. pulling the 6522 out of the socket slightly and then pushing some wires into the socket. And I think what that's talking about is like there's one of these installed. See, this has a little end on it with a little metal thing. I think that goes into the socket along with the IC pin itself. Now the rest of the cables that are on here don't have those. These are just normal connectors. So I assume there was something maybe connected to these that had those little things. In fact, it's mentioning 3 wires that plug into the 6522 socket, but none of these connectors have 3 wires. That's 2, 2, 1 and 1. That one's got 2, and this one here has 4. So slightly confused. Anyhow, moving on, 2 wires go to the 74LS163, and 2 wires to the 6502, and 4 wires go to those ICs. Insert the RAM card into the little socket adapter, or whatever slot adapter. Test it, use a disk here to do it, and test the RAM. Right. Well, that seems pretty cool. So obviously when this thing was first made, there weren't really programs developed for it to take advantage of this extra RAM, obviously other than the utilities that this company made. But as far as I'm aware, it became much more common for stuff to use this additional memory. And well, I guess if you upgrade this thing to 32K, you get 64K total on a BBC Model B. Now, where I have questions is this compatible with the way the BBC Master 128 works for addressing its additional RAM? And was this standardized across all the other sideways RAM expansion for the computer? So that's a question I have for all the experts out there watching this. Now, for installing this into my machine, obviously I don't have the little pins that go under the ICs in the sockets. I can just solder stuff right onto the board like vias and stuff like that and then run it to a connector to connect up to these. That would allow this thing to be removable in the future. I just need a little help to understand exactly where all these signals go to. All right, we are not done. There's still more stuff here that was included. So this one, what is this? This looks like another period correct mod. It's got a button that you would have external on your case, a couple clips that are IC clips. In fact, it's funny, these make a lot more sense for clipping onto your ICs. If you're gonna connect something temporarily, you don't wanna like desolder stuff. This has a 2-pin header that went to something. This little package here says A8124. Oh, on the back, here we go, the replay by, I think it says Vine Micros. Okay, and then we obviously have a little ROM here. Pins are a little bent up, but nothing too serious. I could just replace that as necessary, but yep, there it is. So another freaking awesome period correct little mod. There's a little heat shrink in here, so there's some kind of circuitry in there, a little PCB of some kind. All right, here's something for the replay. Tape to disk program transfer utility for the BBC Micro Model B and B+. The replay system is a totally new development for the BBC microcomputer. Being a highly sophisticated but easy to use disk utility, it will take any, with an asterisk, program in memory and transfer it to the disk at virtually any point in time. This unique ability allows a program to be transferred from tape to disk and from disk to disk in most cases, and can freeze a game or adventure during play for subsequent replay. Also included is the ability to display the screen at a point of saving to disk. Thus, with a screen printer dump routine not supplied to game, status can be printed out. Asterisk, as few recent games may need special formatting. So this ROM seems to have been designed or released in July of 1985, and it looks like it's wanting us to see page 19. So that's the replay switch. That's that button we saw on there. Star replay, or just star rep, the disk drive will whir and the main system menu will be displayed. So obviously we're talking about a floppy drive or floppy disk. I'm gonna have to find that. And it's talking about how to use it here and transferring programs from tape to disk and moving programs from disk to disk. To pause games, press the switch once. The game will freeze with 2 keyboard control LEDs flashing. To restart, simply press F6. This facility is included to allow games without pause buttons to be frozen. Note that when paused, everything is frozen, including the keyboard, except those keys used by the ROM. In other words, flashing graphic colors and no split modes and timers. Time will not give a correct value. This website here doesn't really talk about how to install it, but it looks like we have a review of this product though. There's a picture of the software that's running off the floppy disk. And on Stardot we have a post talking about it, I got a Mark 1 and you inspired me to finally open the shrink wrap package to look inside. So that's what's inside that little blue wrapped package. Just a couple logic ICs. There is the original shrink wrap. Now I can see that pin connected to something there, that clip. Interesting. So that means there's going to be people who are going to be able to tell me how to hook this thing up. So that's what I need to figure out. So any of my BBC experts who are watching this, if you have a link to the ADF file, I can download the floppy disk and some instructions on how exactly to connect this up to the system. That would be freaking amazing. But I'm really looking forward to totally pimping out my Model B with some of these period correct mods here. Sideways ROM, speech synthesizer module, this freezer slash copy utility here. And then we have one more thing here to look at here in this rather lengthy episode. I haven't even tested anything. Oh, this appears to be another one of the Vine's freezers. So we have two. Now the second one here actually looks slightly different. So we have a button, we have the requisite ROM. Unfortunately, this socket is in rough shape, but that's not a big deal. Should be able to fix that without too much trouble. Instead of two clips, this one had two clips and that pin header. This has one pin header with two signals in it, one clip, and then we have a socket that goes underneath, well, actually it doesn't go underneath an IC. This replaces an IC altogether, because this is not a socket. So very interesting. I wonder what the difference is here. Why do some BBCs have this installed and other ones, I guess, have an IC in that socket that would facilitate using this clip here, this IC clip? All right, well, that's going to be it for this video. There's a lot of stuff that Mark sent in here. None of this is very easy for me to test because I don't really know how to use any of this stuff properly. Even the mouse, which is plug and play probably. I need to know what software to use with it. So I'm definitely going to be looking for help here. And yep, I'll be reading through the comments to see what people have to say about all this kind of stuff. I know I can go over to Stardot, which obviously is the forum to go to for not only BBC Micro and Acorn related stuff, but then of course, one of my favorite projects of all time, the RGB to HDMI. Thank you very much to everyone who works on that project. Ian and everyone, that thing is still the best thing around. I just love it. But anyways, for all of this stuff, I'm going to need lots and lots of help and guidance on how to use this stuff. And I will be collecting up that information so that when it's time for me to have the BBC Model B special, which I really need to do, then I can actually get that thing upgraded with all these cool period correct mods. It's so cool. And what this really shows is how the BBC was designed by Acorn in such a way to be so expandable and flexible. I mean, it was already a really good architecture, but then they made the thing so easy to work on. Schematics were available. We just took out 4 screws and the cover came off. And I mean, it was almost designed for users to go in there and muck about, put ROM chips in there and do stuff with it, not be scared to open it up. And that's very different than, of course, most companies today, pretty much everyone today who's like, look, but don't touch, open your computer, we're going to try to avoid your warranty, which is illegal here in the US, but they try anyways. But back in the 80s, especially Acorn, they were very much into allowing people to plug stuff into their computers and do all sorts of cool things with them. Hence the second processor support all the way back on that BBC machine and all the other amazing stuff that was possible on these. And obviously things like this is pretty cool. I mean, I will add, of course, not to disparage any of my Atari fans out there, but there are plenty of RAM expansion boards for the Atari that work in a similar fashion to this with bank switching. And that's how the, what is it, the Atari 130XE, I think it's called, 128K of RAM. It uses bank switching as well from, I think, the 6522 as well. So it works in a similar way. I incidentally bought, I think, one of those really big RAM expansions for my Atari 800XL, which is a 64K machine, but it's using some bank switching as well to facilitate that additional 16K of RAM. And with this RAM expansion board that goes in there and it connects up, it allows way more pages of memory than just the additional 16K, which I don't remember how much it brings you up to because I haven't installed it yet. I bought that from Poland. It's sitting over on the shelf over there, and that's another thing I need to get to. So many projects to get to and so little time. But anyways, yep, please comment down below about how to use this stuff. I would love a little bit more info. Obviously, my quick Google search found some info, but I just didn't find the exact right info that I need for all of this stuff. So any info would be greatly appreciated. So that's going to be it for the video. Thanks very much, Mark, for saying this stuff. I really appreciate it. Sorry about the fact it took like nearly a year to get to it, but I have gotten to it. And now, well, how much longer is it going to take for me to get to this stuff again? It might be a while, but at least you know that I got it and everyone can see this stuff. And yeah, that's it. So thanks very much for watching, everyone. If you liked this video, thumbs up. If you didn't know what to do, huge thanks to my patrons. Names are going up this side of the screen. I'm going to be at VCF in Dallas this weekend. So by the time you see this video on the main or second channel, that is when it goes live, that the weekend will have already passed. But to my patrons, just a reminder that that is this coming weekend. So when you watch this early access, you might have time to get to the show. I'm going to make a separate post on Patreon just to remind everyone that if you're in the Dallas area or around, come out to the show and see me. I'm going to be on 2 panels and I don't have a booth. I'm just going to be wandering around, probably hanging out by the other YouTubers, and it should be a really, really fun show. David from Usagi Electric is going to be there. Of course, David Murray, 8-Bit Guy, is going to be there. I think Clint is going to be there. It's going to be a whole lot of fun. So that's going to be it. So stay healthy, stay safe, and I'll see you next time. Bye.